This is Coffee with Will, brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grande Hospital, anythingtodigital.com, and See Bright Dentistry. And I'm here today with Mike Frasier, who is a longtime music teacher and director of the upcoming Brahms Requiem performance by, a lot of different choirs and a lot of different symphonies. Not just one, I think it's going to be like 150 people at performing, just singing at this performance. And he's here to talk to me today about himself and music and just directing in general. So thank you so much for joining me here today, Mike.
My pleasure.
And so first off, tell me, you have been a longtime music teacher, a longtime director of plays. Mm-hmm. What got you started into this, and how did this work? How did you get to the place where you are now?
Okay, the short story. I decided, my mom tells me that I decided when I was about 10 that I wanted to do this for a living. And there's a long backstory to it, but the nuts and bolts are my mom was a musician, and she directed choirs. And she never finished her teaching ed, but she always directed community choirs and sang, and so I tagged along a lot.
So you have it in your family.
Yeah, and my first directing experience was when I was just about 10, and I was directing the children's choir for our Sunday school Christmas pageant.
And how old were you?
I was about 10.
Wow.
And the reason I was
precocious.
Here's the story. My great aunt was the. In fact, I actually wrote an article for a magazine about this. I called it The Angels Choir. But anyway, I digress. But I was singing in the children's choir, and one day my great aunt, who was the director of the Sunday school program, came up to me and said, "Mike, we've decided that we really would like to have a youth person directing the choir, and we just thought you would be the perfect person." And I thought, wow, this is cool. And so my first experience was I directed the kids in, Angels We Have Heard on High, and Oh Come All Ye Faithful, and all that. Well, fast forward to I'm 20 years old, and I'm just getting ready to do my student teaching. I went and visited my great aunt, and I was reminding her of that story and how that got me started.
Now, I should tell you, when I was younger, I was the angel in one of my church's Christmas pageants.
See, we all got started.
I had a halo. I had cute white wings, and when a 16-year-old Will looked fabulous.
Yeah.
I think I actually have a picture of this on my Facebook page. I might be able to get this for the final recording. So.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what I was saying was that I went and talked to my aunt about this, and she said, well, she had a confession to make, and basically, she said, the reason we asked you to be the director of the kids' choir is you sang so loudly and not always the right notes that we didn't have the heart to tell you that you were sort of destroying the overall group. So we thought if we made you director, it would give you a chance to do something that was participatory. And luckily, I got better as I got older.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I could have been a dentist, or I could have owned a television studio or something.
You could have ended up
So
anywhere.
that's how I got started. Yeah.
And so now, however many years later,
Yeah.
you're directing plays and you're directing musicals. What do you like about it so much? What keeps bringing you back to this thing?
I think the same thing that got me interested in the first
Not
place.
being able to sing?
No,
Which is not true, because I've heard you
no.
sing.
No, I got much better. If my mom was still alive, she would say I was probably the least talented of her 4 children, but I worked hardest. So
There you go.
I think the thing that I like most is the whole feeling of bringing a diverse group of people together doing something in common. It's akin to coaching, but different than coaching in that it's more collaborative. You take all of these people and you help mold them into something that they couldn't do by themselves. And I really like that. I like the collaboration. I just like seeing a project that you start from square one and you finish it, and everybody gets to enjoy it. Not only the performers, but the audience. And so I like that a lot. And when I was a teacher, that's what I enjoyed the most. I enjoyed that collaboration of let's make music, let's do a show, and we're all going to work together and work hard. And through that, people tend to make new connections in their lives. So
Absolutely.
I guess that's
now. So here's a question: if you could, your favorite production that you've done in your life that you directed?
No, that I've ever done. that's really hard.
And I know that that's kind of like asking an English major his favorite book in the world,
right.
which is like completely unfair.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so maybe if just one of the best experiences you've had directing. And you are free to think about that.
Yeah, I'm going to think about it while we're going along here. Yeah, they all have different spots. You know, last year when I had the privilege of doing My Fair Lady out at the Elgin Opera House, it had a special place because of the diversity of the people that were involved.
Absolutely.
You know, all ages. With my public school career, probably some of my favorite memories were early ones, probably. Back in the late 1970s when I started first doing musicals at the high school, I had a really, really wonderful group of kids that we sort of started the whole musical theater program. And so that, you know, I
That
don't
was
know.
here in La Grande?
Yeah, that was at La Grande High School, yeah.
Very
So
cool.
a production we did of Godspell was really memorable because it was the first really big musical we did in La Grande, and that was just totally, you know, high school kids and stuff, and it was a great first experience, I guess.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about that idea that you brought up earlier about music as collaboration. I got a recent opportunity to talk to Zeke Faltrow, who
Right.
is the director of the Grand Ron
Right,
Symphony.
and I did want to correct you that he is the director of the Brahms. I'm just, okay, my job as, there are three of us that are preparing our choirs. Myself, I'm doing the Grand Ron Community Choir that you're singing in.
Yes,
Yay,
yes,
wait.
yes.
Good on you, Will.
Well, we'll see if you're still saying that after I
Yeah,
sing.
and after we listen to you sing, it could be Goodwill Hunting for notes. Yeah,
I can just see the news
yeah.
line. Local television personality flees local area
Yeah,
after
right, yeah.
musicians
So-
go out for his scalp.
So I'm preparing the Grand Ron Community Choir. Peter Wortelman at the university is preparing the chamber choir, and then Rebecca Rapogel, who's I think I pronounced her last name correctly. If I didn't, sorry, Rebecca, who's the director of choirs at Treasure Valley Community Choirs, is preparing her college choir and her community choir. So those four choirs will be the critical mass for the Brahms Requiem.
Gotcha.
And then Zeke is conducting the Grand Ron Symphony Orchestra, and he will be leading the whole 150 people.
Absolutely.
And along with that, Peter Wortelman and Rebecca from the TVCC will be doing the baritone and soprano solos.
Absolutely. And so that being said, Zeke is a very, very intelligent individual, very, very highly regarded in the composing circles around here. I mean, he is trained, I believe, on the West Coast. And I recently got a chance to sit down with him and talk about music. And he said very similar things to you in that music is collaboration. Music is the bringing together of people from diverse worldviews and people groups to collaborate, centered around human emotion and some very cosmopolitan and universal human emotions. Now, using that to let's talk about Brahms. I personally know just a very small bit about Brahms. Brahms was a German composer,
Correct.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong in any of this.
That's all right.
He composed the Brahms as a humanist work that focused around emotions such as loss and grief and anxiety moving into hope and restoration. So talk to me a little bit about Brahms and expand on that, and how is Brahms focusing on these emotions, and what can we take away from this piece that we're going to be doing?
Well, the German Requiem by Brahms could be considered humanistic in the fact that the traditional structure of a Requiem Mass, takes their text from the Latin liturgy. And so you have the Kyrie, and you have the Requiem, and you have the Lacrimosa, and you have all of this, but it all deals with, in the traditional liturgy, it all deals with it's called a Mass for the dead, because it's about the person that has passed away. What makes this more humanistic is this piece doesn't follow the Latin, and it takes all of its text from the Lutheran Bible and from what's the word? I wrote it down because I always mess it up.
We have notes.
We have notes. I have notes here. From the Apocrypha, which is books that were biblical in nature, but aren't included in the Old Testament, New Testament, but are additional texts.
Books like Maccabees.
Right,
books
right.
like,
The Maccabees, and this one has text from Ecclesiasticus, which has, and there's one of the movements that it contains text from that. Anyway, I digress again. What makes it humanistic is this Mass is all about the living. It's a memorial to those people who are left behind after the loved one dies. And this is just what I wrote down earlier this morning. Where a traditional requiem or Mass for the dead uses text from Scripture to offer repose for the deceased, the text in the German Requiem was selected by Brahms to emphasize that it is the bereaved, those who are left behind, who need consolation, who need peace, who need comfort. So it's a totally different approach to writing a requiem. One is about the people that have died, and Lord grant to them peace,
in the afterlife.
Eternal in the afterlife. This one is about granting hope and peace and comfort to the people that are still here.
Absolutely.
An example, if I get too...
No, this is great. This is
all
great.
right, an example, the beginning and the end. I'll just read. So in the Latin Requiem, the first movement, which is the Requiem Aeternam, the text translates as eternal rest give to them, O Lord, give to the departed. In the German Requiem, the beginning text are, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So it's a total flip. One is about the deceased in the traditional, and in the Brahms, it's about those left behind. And then it closes in the traditional Latin with, deliver me, O Lord, from eternal death. In other words, to the person that's died, please deliver me to heaven, as opposed to somewhere else. And in the German Requiem, it ends with, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Later on. So bless me later on when I pass. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works to follow them. So anyway, it's just a different approach. So that's how it gets, in my mind, becomes more of a humanistic work. Because it's talking about all of the humanity that's still here instead of
the ones who have passed on into the afterlife.
Exactly.
Now, Brahms is considered, now that being all said, he got in a little bit of trouble for it, from what I did a little bit of reading. But the piece itself is widely considered to be one of the greatest works of
compositional literature, yes.
Yeah, and so why,
Well, I think part of it is it's an extremely, I don't want to use the word heavy, it's a really substantial work. I mean, the choral work is, it's been kicking us a little bit in rehearsal.
Oh yes, I can tell you, Grande, it has been kicking me in the patukas. I've never done a choir before, and I chose a doozy who wanted to come in on.
When I talked to Peter about it, Peter Wortelman, we both, and my accompanist at the community choir, Lynetta Paul, who has been in Grande for 70 years and is really highly regarded for her musical skills and knowledge. And we've chatted about this, and this is probably, in the 43 plus years I've been in Grande, this is the largest musical undertaking that's happened here. Recently, they did a community production, production of Handel's Messiah, which is also considered a major work, but it's not as difficult. It doesn't require quite the chops that the Brahms does. And so this is considered one of probably the top 5 symphonic choral works in the musical canon, as they would say. So, yeah.
So that being said, we're kind of getting close to running out of time. So let's talk briefly. Why should someone come and see Brahms here in Grande? Maybe someone who's not familiar with choral music, maybe someone who isn't really interested in classical music. Why should somebody come to see Brahms?
Okay. That's a good question. I mean, you asked earlier about humanism, and I think that music is a reflection of who we are, what our experiences are, and I think going to something like this, or participating especially, I'm a believer that music is a participatory activity first and foremost, but having an audience really makes it more fun.
Oh yeah.
So I guess what I'd say is the people in our community, and in some people from Baker and people from Ontario and people from up the branch, these 150 people that have worked for the last 10 weeks on this have put a lot of time and effort and sweat equity into it, and you'll come away just, if you're a spiritual person, you'll come away with a real strengthening of your spiritual relationship. If you're a non-spiritual person, you'll come away with a feeling of being uplifted by coming in and listening. So I would encourage you, simply because it's going to be, and not only that, it's going to be a huge event. Seeing that many people on stage doing this all at once. So.
Absolutely. Now it's next week,
Correct.
March 14th in Ontario.
In Ontario at the Four Rivers Cultural Center.
And then the 16th?
The 16th.
In LeGrand.
At Mackenzie Theater.
Mackenzie Theater.
Right.
So.
And both performances are at 7:30. If you want to go to the one in Ontario, they're an hour ahead, so got to leave your shift.
You got to make sure you know your time zone.
Exactly, exactly. So,
perfect.
Anyway.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me. It was super fun to have you, and I'm excited to sing in the choir.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to sing in the choir too, since I prepared the choir, but I don't get to conduct. So I get to sing tenor, so I'll be up there with you.
Well, I hope you're right here so I can just piggyback off all your notes. When I get screwed up and go off all over, I can just be like, oh, there's Mike right there.
And that's the nice thing about having that big a choir. There's always going to be a few people, myself included, that there's going to be sections that we're less familiar with than others. And in a piece of music that's about an hour and 15 minutes long, it's going to be a lot of work. It'll be fun work.
It's helpful to have people there to help.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Grande Live. This has been Coffee with Will and Mike Frasier, brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grande Hospital, anythingtodigital.com, and See Bright Dentistry. Please like and share this video and tune in for more local content.